Hi everybody, I just wanted to do a quick video with you guys to go over this week's annotated bibliography assignments. And I wanted to sort of explain how everything works together. So hopefully by this point you've read the reading assignments and you've read through my notes. And so now tonight I'm going to go over the scholarly research chart that's due on Friday. And then I wanted to explain how that works into the annotated bibliography assignment. Most of your major assignments will come with some lead-in assignments. I try to sort of scaffold it, meaning I just sort of layer it, and I want everything to move into the next thing. So obviously you have one topic this summer in English 112, and then all of the assignments you do will center around that one topic and that research. So I hope that makes sense. If you ever have a need for clarity on that, let me know. I've had a couple of emails asking for clarity about topics or clarity about types of research that they can use, and I welcome that. I try to answer them pretty quickly. So I did tell you last weekend I had a graduation and a lot of people at my house, but I did return all the emails that I got. One thing to keep in mind is if you use a non-JCC email, there's a strong chance that it might go into a spam folder or it may not come to me. So make sure that if you're contacting me to use your JCC student email. If something like Blackboard or your student email is not working, you need to contact someone in Jolt at JCC. And I'll try to make sure that that's linked in the resources file. I think it already is, but I'll double check that. Okay, so moving right along, I just wanted to go over the scholarly research chart with you. So the requirements, I hope, made sense. I typed the wrong thing. Hold on one second. Let me go back to it. I hope it made sense to you, but basically on this chart, what I'm asking you to do is to choose 3 of the sources that you found. I want them to be scholarly, and then you're going to show me what those sources are, and you're going to sort of go through these little prompts, and this assignment is a lead-in to the annotated bibliography assignment. So I made the deadline for Friday, and then my goal is to give you feedback pretty quickly on these 3 that you'll post, source 1, 2, and 3. And I want to see a working claim on here. So what I need you to do is to think about your large topic and think about how you've narrowed it, and think about what the issue is, and then your claim is what you're claiming are the solution to that problem, what you're claiming that will be true. A claim is a point of view from the author, which you'll be the author, the writer, and it claims something about that topic. So think about, you've kind of moved from that broad, like maybe nursing, down to pediatric nursing, and then a problem within the field of pediatric nursing, and then an issue within that field that you're proclaiming something. You're claiming something that will help solve that problem. You don't have to be original with your claim. It doesn't have to be something that you're inventing from scratch. It doesn't have to be something that's 100% original. It could be that through your research you found that this is a problem, and in some areas of that profession it's being solved in a certain way, and you want to show that you want to claim that this should be more widely used or widely utilized in certain areas of your field of study. Okay, so basically on this chart, I think it's a great idea if you just use what I've given you. This is a Microsoft Word document, and you could do something like this. You could go in and you could sort of take out my words, add a little header, page number, and then just use what I've got here. It's not that hard if you just use the chart I've already given you. But basically, I do want a header at the top, and then the header would have your name and our course. The MLA header that you used in 111 is fine. And then I want you to have a working claim. So you would probably type in claim, colon, and then the sentence. One thing to remember, this is like a thesis. So just like a thesis is not a title or an incomplete sentence, a claim is also not incomplete. It should be a complete sentence, a complete statement. And I know that this is not going to be the perfect final destination for your claim, but I do want to see where you're headed at this point. That way I can give you some feedback on where your claim is, how you might be able to strengthen it further. So the claim that you use, though, is usually what you stick with through all the assignments for the class. You just may tweak how you phrase it or how it's presented, but the side or the point of view that you take is usually would be consistent throughout the whole class. Okay, so with source 1, you're going to create an APA citation. In one of the earlier videos, I showed you how you could utilize the JCC databases and how they will help you form the citation. You also have the Siegel Handbook, and I strongly encourage you to use that. And even if you use a citation helper with the databases, I want you still to check the Siegel Handbook, because a lot of times those citation generators make mistakes. Avoid EasyBib or some of those that are more commercial. They don't have the staff to keep up with the changes with APA or MLA or some of the other formatting mechanisms. So, but most of these scholarly citation generators are usually pretty close to right, but I still find mistakes with them all the time. So with the citation, I want it to be an APA. Make sure you double check that. Then you're going to have a few sentences to summarize the source, and I want you to show what type of source it is. So is it an article? Is it a website? Is it a video? And then I want you to sort of go through the prompts here to summarize. And you're summarizing whatever the source is. Then I want you to analyze and evaluate it. And that means you're looking at the content to see what's included on that source, and you need to evaluate it. Then I want you to synthesize. A lot of students are very familiar with summarizing and evaluating, but they're not familiar with synthesizing. So what synthesize is you're connecting your research, your source, to your claim. That's why it's so important that I see that working claim. Then I want to see how this source that you found that you think is very important, I want to see how you tie that to your claim. So an example of a synthesis statement might be, this article proves that, and then you sort of fill in the blank of what it proves, and therefore will be important to further this research. And you want to be more specific than sort of how I'm doing it here, just sort of on the fly, but with your synthesis you need to specifically connect it to the claim, and you don't want to use first person. So instead of typing or writing my claim, you would type or write the claim. I like to see third person. So I hope that sort of helps you, but you're going to do this 3 times. So you're going to give the citation in APA from the source. You're going to summarize the source and definitely identify what type of source it is. You're going to analyze and evaluate it, and then you're going to synthesize it to show how it ties to the research. Do that 3 times, and that's what's due on Friday. Believe it or not, this ties in to your annotated bibliography. I'm going to give you feedback on these 3 sources. Then next Tuesday and next week, you're going to turn in your annotated bibliography, and I'm asking for 5 sources. They have to be different, so you're not going to repeat these in your annotated bibliography. But by the time you turn in your annotated bibliography, I will have given you feedback, and you're going to do these same things in your annotated bibliography. Okay, so now let's switch over to the annotated bibliography work. Okay, so if you notice here in Blackboard, I've given you a folder of handouts for the annotated bibliography. I'm not going to go through all of those with you right now, but I wanted to sort of review them. So first you have an APA annotated bibliography handout, and that's going to give you a lot of information about what an annotated bibliography is and how to format it. Then I've given you a PowerPoint, and I know that we moved from MLA in English 111 to APA in English 112. And in this PowerPoint, I've given you some key points to what are some of the big differences between MLA and APA. So MLA, the Modern Language Association, that's used a lot in English and some of the liberal arts classes. And then APA, the American Psychological Association, that's used obviously in psychology classes, sociology, and other more technical areas. So business, for instance, oftentimes will use APA. There are other formatting styles that you might find in whatever area you go into for a major, but we at JCC concentrate on MLA and APA so that you're accustomed to switching formats, but you're also accustomed to understanding how rules are set, and then you follow the rules. So that PowerPoint will probably help you see how to transition to APA. Okay, then here's annotated bibliography, reading assignments, and assignment info, and annotated bibliography assignment APA. So here is your assignment. Hopefully you've gone over this already, but I'm going to go over it with you briefly. Okay. Probably the longest assignment sheet that I have would be for the annotated bibliography, and that's because a lot of you have never done an annotated bibliography, so I've tried to give you a lot of information in this assignment sheet. Usually my assignment sheets are one page, but this is a couple of pages, and that's just because I know that most of you have never done it, but it is something important that you'll probably see in a lot of college classes. So let me explain quickly what an annotated bibliography is. So an essay is a very broad way of writing. Many of you have written essays in 111. You will write an essay in this class, and you'll write loads of essays in other college classes. So if you think of the word essay, that's a very broad term for a lot of different types of writing. So with essays, you may write a comparison contrast, a narrative, description, cause and effect paper. They're all essays, but depending on who assigns it, you have to do different things to please the instructor or to follow the assignment properly. Annotated bibliography is another very broad term, and so we'll just break it down. Annotation means to note, and bibliography means sources. So basically, you're taking your sources and you're noting them, and you're showing someone who is reviewing it the significance of that source in relation to a research project. So a lot of times, and it's not always true, it depends on what instructor you have, a lot of times your instructor will have you do an annotated bibliography for a large research project, and that's what we're doing in this class. Sometimes an instructor may have you do an annotated bibliography after a large research project, and that's fine too. It's usually just a way for the instructor or the reviewer to review your research and the quality of your research, and also to determine if you were able to assess that research properly. So I'm asking you to do 5 sources in addition to the 3 that you do in the preliminary assignment, the one that you're going to turn in on Friday. And then following that one, after you get my feedback, you will do a more formal representation of your research with 5 additional sources. So if you add them all up, you're going to have 8, but it's going to be in 2 different assignments. So an annotated bibliography, like I said, is you're making notes about sources. Annotation, bibliography. What you're doing mainly for me is we've been working on this research for a couple of weeks, and you're going to sort of showcase what research you feel like is really great for your topic and will help to prove your claim. So your claim is a point of view or a side of an argument or a side of an issue, and you're trying to show these sources and write about what makes them significant. Okay, so moving along, there are many different things that an instructor may ask you to include, many different styles of presenting the information. I've tried to make this assignment sort of in the category of the most normal and ordinary way you would be asked to do an annotated bibliography. There's a site called the Purdue OWL, which is from Purdue University, and they are well known for their writing site. If you ever want to Google it, if you haven't already in English 111, just Google Purdue Online Writing Lab or Purdue OWL. and they have a lot of information about how to write certain types of papers or documents. What I did was I tried to look at what they and a lot of other universities were asking students to include in an annotated bibliography, because I'm just trying to get you accustomed to writing this style and including the information that's probably included in most annotated bibliographies. However, as I said, it just depends on what instructor you have, what they may ask you to do. So in the future, if you have this assignment again, just make sure you pay close attention to what that instructor is asking you to do. So in most cases, again, like we did in the preliminary assignment, you're going to summarize, analyze, and synthesize. In the summary, you're going to identify what type of source it is. So again, website, article, journal article, video, TED Talk, whatever you're including. In this case, I do allow you to source that interview that you did last week. So if you want to use the interview as a source, I do allow it as one of the 5. And I think that's a great way to do some firsthand research on something that you did. You went out and got the interview, and I allow you to use that as a source. So in that case, if you did use it as one of the 5 that I'm asking you to do, you would need to show, you would say personal interview or something, and then you would name the person that you interviewed, who they are, where they work, what their title is, that kind of thing. Then in the evaluation, you want to evaluate, in the case of the interview, you would evaluate what was discussed, what was a conclusion maybe from some of the information, and you would evaluate the quality, the level of the information. And then when you synthesize it, you want to tie it back to that claim. So for instance, if you did an interview and at the end of that interview you realized that maybe it wasn't something you would move forward with, that information didn't exactly match the claim or match the direction you were going with your research, you could just put in the synthesis, you could write, while this interview was informative, it did not necessarily reveal the information that ties well to the claim. And then you would probably put a follow-up sentence to explain why it didn't exactly match. And you would do this whether it was a journal, a video, a website, a book, or whatever. So you're going to identify and summarize the source, what it is. Then you're going to analyze it, and with the evaluation part, you're going to evaluate the content of whatever that source is, and then the synthesis is just tying it back to the claim. When you tie it back to the claim, it doesn't have to be, this is great and it will be used. You might just write that it's not going to be used. A couple things I want you to be aware of, a few little pitfalls that happen a lot. Don't use first person. You're going to probably have the desire to write about you, like I found, or when I read the journal article. Don't do that. You must use third person, and that's just an academic rigor that I expect, and it's a voice that I want you to use. It's third person. You're not part of that. You didn't write the article. You did the interview, but I still want you to keep it in third person. So you would write in the interview, not in my interview. The other thing I want you to be careful with is when you evaluate, don't just put in quotes. This needs to be your evaluation, and you need to make sure that you're showing me that you really put a lot of thought into why it's important and what that information means. Okay, so here's just a quick example of the citation, and this is an APA, and then this is a quick little annotation of that source. So I gave you a little example of what that was so you can read through that. And then I gave you a link to the Purdue OWL. Like I said, you could also link to it just through Google if you wanted to. So here's the assignment. I'm asking you to do 5 sources in addition to the 3 that you did in the preliminary assignment. And I do not need to see those 3 repeated in this assignment. If you repeat them, you're not going to get credit in both places. So by the time I grade this one, I will have already graded the first 3, and then you would lose credit for those 3. Okay. So, and if you think about it, 5 sources for 100 points, they're basically worth 20 points each. So if you're missing 3 of them, the most you can make is a 40. So don't repeat the 3 sources that you start with in the preliminary assignment. That assignment was really meant for me to be able to give feedback to you before you do this assignment. All right, so here's sort of a repeat of what you've already done: selecting the topic, locating the sources, locating scholarly sources. If you notice these first 3 points, you've already done that. We did that in the previous weeks. So you first selected a topic, then you did preliminary research, then you began your scholarly research. I did have a question this week from a student who had found a really good source in the preliminary process, and she really, I think it was a she wanted to use it in this assignment for the scholarly research. And she explained it to me, and it worked. It was something that seemed to be part of a professional site. It seemed to be published by someone who had authority over the topic. I really do not favor a lot of Google sources, but if you do find something on a professional organization, one of those websites that I had encouraged you to explore, sometimes they do have scholarly articles published there. You may find something on Google Scholar. We had sort of talked about it before, that sometimes they try to charge for those, or they give portions of the source, like it's not a full text. But if you find a full text in Google Scholar, you can use it. Okay. And then you just go on and complete the bibliography. On the same page, I do repeat some of not only what I've just said in this video, but what is written in the handout. A couple of things repeat because I really wanted to emphasize that these are important elements to include. Okay. So another thing about grading is this does count for 60% of your grade. So our course is divided in 40% categories and 60% categories. When you do a discussion board, that's part of the 40% category. And then when you do some of the major assignments or some of the lead-in assignments, like the interview was a major assignment. The 3 sources that are the preliminary sources that I'll give you feedback on, that'll go into the 40% category, because I'm not counting it quite as much because I want to be able to give you some feedback. So I'm considering that as a general writing assignment. And then the annotated bibliography itself, which has the 5 sources after you've gotten my feedback, then that's going to count in the 60% category. So the deadlines are in Blackboard, so you can look for those. The annotated bibliography is due next Tuesday. And then just to close out the video, just remember, I do not accept late work. This is a short summer session. Even in a regular semester, most instructors do not accept late work. That's part of the college experience, is that you maintain a proper schedule and that you do your assignments in a timely manner and that you turn them in by the deadline. If something extraordinary happened in your life and it was something that you just absolutely couldn't happen, like an illness or a car accident or something like that, I mean, please let me know. But it's just not customary for me to give you extensions on assignments. It puts me in a rough spot because I'm not trying to be mean, but I have to schedule my time to grade it, and I'm not going to have time to go back and pick up assignments to grade after I've already done that. So just make sure that you're keeping track. I do give you the deadlines every week. I do try to highlight them for you as a something that's just grace to help you. But Summers are tough because we're sort of doubling up on a lot of the work, but I try to keep that in mind. So, for instance, that's why I put the annotated bibliography deadline into Tuesday, so you'd have the whole weekend plus a couple of days into next week. So, if you have any questions, let me know. I'm looking forward to seeing all of your great research, and I know you'll do a good job. Just make sure you check it, make sure it's polished when you give it to me. I am a tough grader, and I am going to look for that college level performance from you. So good luck with everything. Let me know if you have any questions, and I look forward to seeing your research.